Welcome. I think we're all ready to start. So it's an absolute delight to see here. You've made it through to Friday, which I think is really impressive, having seen that amazing agenda. The festival is such a great opportunity, I think, for all of us to come together, to have this one time where we're together talking about problems, but most importantly, talking about solutions. And I think, as we're all aware in this room, there are many challenges to developing safe, secure homes that we know are so desperately needed. But one of the key challenges I think we all face or have seen is how do we finance the housing that we really need? Or as I like to think of it, where's the money coming from? There are some great ideas, but actually, how do we actually pay for them? And that's what this really important session is all about today. We're going to be looking at having an opportunity to discuss social investment, where some of that money may come from, and the types of relationships and impact investors that are so important to make these things happen. My name is Louise Winterburn. I work for World Habitat, and for the last 35 years, we've worked in partnership with UN Habitat to find really amazing housing solutions to tackle those key challenges around the world. And today, I'm delighted to open, very briefly, you'll be glad to hear, for two of our amazing award winners who've shown us how not only can you create really important, affordable, social rented housing, but how you can unlock some social finance to do that. So I would really hope that you take this opportunity in the spirit of the festival to ask questions, to get involved in discussions, and to follow up with the people that you hear today. There are some really great opportunities. I'm also delighted that we're going to have colleagues from the social investment world who are here to talk to us about impact investment and the amazing relationships that they have built with social housing providers. And I think that's what's really special about the world of impact investment. We're going to be recording this session. I've been asked to cover off some practicalities, so we will be recording things. You'll notice that there is a QR code at the top. If you want to scan that code, and I really do encourage you to do so, you can get follow-up information like the slides, but most importantly for today, you can ask questions. So if you would like to ask questions of our panel, then this is the place that you can do it. Simply type in a quick question for us, and we will get through as many of those as we can, and we will follow up with you afterwards. Making connections is a really important part of the festival. What I'm going to do now is the session itself is going to start with an overview of social or impact investment. And then we've got a number of speakers who are going to be in conversation, really discussing their relationship and their models and their approaches. We'll then have time for some questions from you, because I know you're all scanning that quick QR code now. Thank you very much. And then we'll come to a close. So we're going to make it as tight as possible to get through as much as we can, but there is that opportunity to talk further in the future. So I'm delighted to bring on our first speaker, Guillermo Casanovas, who's an assistant professor at ISHF Business School in Barcelona. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Luis. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome to this session. As Luis was saying, we have a pretty packed agenda for today, so I'm going to just dive right into the topic. Okay, so allow me, before we introduce our speakers, I wanted to give you some context for the session. So as you know from the title, it's about impact investing and social housing. And I assume that you are all more or less experts in social housing, at least after these 3 days here in Barcelona. At least you are for sure more experts than myself, but maybe not all of you know of how or have heard about impact investing, right? Or maybe you have heard about it, but you know exactly what it is. So I will take now, if you don't mind, 2 or 3 minutes to tell you about what we understand by impact investing, okay? I will do that only with one slide, so we'll do it quickly, and then we will start with our speakers, okay? So before we go into impact investing, you see here kind of a spectrum, right? So on the one hand, we have traditional financial markets. We know how financial markets work, right? We know people, investors, trying, when they invest, they try to maximize their financial returns. They try to maximize this binomial that we call risk and return, or sometimes we talk about risk-adjusted return. And their investors, what they want to do is to maximize this variable, usually not thinking too much about the potential impact of the companies that they are investing in. On the other side, we have philanthropy. We also know how philanthropy works. We know how donors give their money for charitable causes, assuming that they are not going to see that money in the future, right? So they give away the money and they do it because they want to see this amazing social impact that the social sector does, right? In the last few years, we have seen new practices, new concepts appear in both of these worlds, right? So some people talk about venture philanthropy or strategic philanthropy, and they mean here when these donors, they are trying to incorporate or to bring more innovation and more business-like practices into these social sector organizations, right? But still, they work with the premise that they donate their money, they give it away, and they are not expecting the money back or any financial return. On the side of the financial markets, we have also seen some developments. Probably you have heard about sustainable investment, about responsible investment, what we call ESG investing. And these are labels that what they do is they talk about these investors that incorporate what we call environmental, social, and governance factors into their investment decisions, right? So it's not that they are moving away from the maximizing financial returns paradigm, but they are saying, okay, we want to invest in companies that are responsible, that are not harming the environment, that are paying their employees what they have to pay them, etc. Right? So it's not moving that far away from traditional financial markets. It's still very commendable and a very good thing to do, as long as it's not greenwashing and just marketing stuff. No? So if there is something real and solid behind those labels, it's a good practice. However, what we are going to be talking about today is something else. It's something that is, let's say, qualitatively different from this type of ESG investing. And what the label that is more common to talk about this is impact investing. In the UK, sometimes they call it social investing as well. We can call it social impact investing, but we are going to use this impact investing label, right? And it's different from philanthropy because here, even if the impact is very at the center, the investors are expecting to get the money back and they are expecting at least some financial return. We can talk later whether this financial return will be low, will be high, but there is an expectation of financial return. But it's also different from more traditional investing because here it's not just saying we invest in responsible companies, but here it's about investors that really want to contribute to solve some of the existing social and environmental challenges that we have, right? So they are saying, I want to contribute to the education of vulnerable communities or to the employment of people that is in risk of exclusion or to the environment by recycling more, etc. So I'm going to invest in companies that are focused and centered in doing these kind of things, right? So this is impact investing. We usually say that we move from the binomial that I mentioned of risk and return to a trinomial. We could say that is risk, return, and impact, right? So return and impact are at the same level, at least. Yeah. And one of the contexts in which this is done or can be done is, of course, social housing, right? So we know that it's a very pressing and common in all the world, very important social challenge. So in need of investment, in need of funding, and that's why we think that this session is very interesting, right? Again, with this incorporation of impact into the equation, some will say then you have to give up some of the financial return. Some others will say, no, you can have as high financial return and still have the impact. Those are kind of the debates that we will be having now with the speakers. Okay. This is the kind of 2-minute crash course on impact investing. I hope that was helpful. But of course, on paper, this looks very nice, very easy, but it's not so easy, no? And the devil, as always, is in the details. And those details are the ones that we are going to be tackling with our speakers. Yeah. And we are going to do this, as I said, in a very specific context, which is the one we are interested in here, which is social housing. And we are going to try to answer some of these questions we have here, right? So is there an investment case for social and affordable housing? Meaning, can investors make money actually by investing in this type of projects? In this context as well, is there a trade-off between financial returns and social impact? You know, if we want to have more impact, do we have to give up some financial return or not? What about non-financial support? So what type of value apart from the money itself, can impact investors put in the table for their investees? What is the role of impact measurement, right? So if we say that impact is as important as financial returns, how do we measure that? And what do we do with those measures? And also more specifically, how do we structure this type of investments? Is it similar to other more traditional real estate investments, or do we need different vehicles, or how do we do that? Okay, so I hope you're as excited as I am. I think the panel will be great with a lot of interesting insights. And now I think we're going to welcome our panelists here. I moved the slide. So please, Susan, Jorge, Jose Manuel, Xavier, if you can join me here. Okay, so let me just say their names so that we can know where they come from as well, and then we start with the questions, okay? So coming all the way from Scotland, we have Susan Achtemel, founder and executive director of Homes for Good, a social enterprise in Glasgow that owns and manages social housing properties, right? We have Jorge Llorens from an investment director at Social and Sustainable Capital, a UK firm as well, but although he's based in Madrid now, which is an impact investing firm, as I said, that is focused, and he will tell us more about it, on the sector of housing, right? And one of their investments is Susan's Homes for Good. So they will tell us about the deal they made there. We also have, also from Madrid, Jose Manuel Caballol, Director General at Hogar Sí, which is a philanthropic foundation that helps homeless people in Madrid, and founder as well of Primero H, which is a very interesting project, a real estate investment vehicle that he will tell us also about later. And we have then from Barcelona, Xavier Mauri, Director General at Fundació Habitat 3, which is also a philanthropic foundation here in Barcelona that promotes and manages social housing projects. And he will tell us also about the role that some impact investors have played in some of their activities. Okay, so you guys ready? Let's start with a question for Susan. Okay, can you tell us a bit more about this project, Homes for Good? What is the activity that you do, and so we can know more about it? Thank you.
So I just want to tell you a little bit about Homes for Good in Glasgow and why we have created this portfolio of homes with social investment. What you can see there is that we have the breakdown of ownership and social renting and private renting in Glasgow. But what you can also see is that there are 64,000 people waiting for social housing in Glasgow. And there are 5,000 people who present as homeless every year in Glasgow. So there aren't enough homes to go round. And what Homes for Good is really interested in are the people on the social housing waiting list, because where can they live if they can't get a social house and they don't have enough money for the full market rent? So we decided to create a portfolio of housing at the lower end of the private rented sector using social investment to enable people to live in homes that they could afford, because the private rented sector is flexible. There's always supply becoming available to buy and to rent. So what we've done in Homes for Good are essentially it's three things with the properties. We've raised investment, and it's all social investment that we've raised. We've raised £20 million since 2014, and specifically about £7 million from Social and Sustainable Capital. And we raised that, and the money needs to be at the right price to fit the model of the cost of the property that we're going to buy. Then we renovate the property. We do an interior design approach, and we fully furnish it so that those empty properties become homes, beautiful homes for people who need them. So you can see that that's the way that things start. And then through the renovation process, these are the homes that we then rent out to people on lower incomes. So our focus is people who are either earning less than maybe €16,000 a year, which is not a lot of money, or who are in receipt of government benefits to pay their rent. And you can see that the breakdown of the people that we are working with. So a lot of the people we are working with have been homeless or are homeless at the point of coming into one of our properties, but we're more interested in preventing homelessness as well. And quite often people are coming out of bad private rented sector properties into the newer ones, or our ones, which are higher quality and more affordable. And what we also do then is, once they're in our properties, we provide a tenancy support approach where We work with them to do sort of reduce social isolation, but also help with budgeting and things and different things to help their lives be better in our properties. So social investment, the form of social investment that we have from Social and Sustainable Capital is a 10-year 100% funded loan. It's very simple. It's a loan, and the rental income that we generate from our properties repays the loan and repays the interest. It's a really simple model, but as we're going to hear, I think, from everybody, the critical points are the cost of the property, how do you keep the rent affordable, and how do you make sure that that our investors get the return they need for their model as well. So there's lots of different moving parts. We have managed to buy and renovate about 340 properties since 2014 with this. How it goes forward is going to be interesting because interest rates are going up so quickly that there's maybe the model, my feeling is that it's maybe a wee bit shaky. It's maybe going to become difficult, but that's where we are today. And I would like Jorge to come or just to talk about why you took the serious decision to invest in Homes for Good. We've been partners now for 5 years, so it would be good to hear your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Susan. So for a second, I'm going to pretend that Susan is not in the room, so I can speak freely. But quite frankly, in the world of social impact investing, it is very, very difficult to find an organization, which for us is, and for our investors, is an investment opportunity that combines two features. So on one hand, the senior management team and the board having, as they say in English, their heart in the right place. So having an absolutely authentic way to conduct their business, a real care about their tenants in this case, or of their beneficiaries, if we're talking about a charity or a foundation. So a very solid ethos. It is very disappointing to see how many players, how many investors, even social impact investors, third sector organizations, that actually their primary motivation is making money, and it's unbelievable. And actually this can actually be of great harm to the rest of the sector, because sometimes, you know, we're all perceived to act in the same way. So we do a very thorough scrutiny and due diligence of the organizations that we work with. But then on the other hand, what Homes for Good has, which is I think even more unique with this type of organizations, is that they are a truly professional organization. I mean, they run the organization, notwithstanding everything I said about the social aspect of things, they run a very kind of tight and focused business model. So the whole management team, the board, they are very focused on the numbers. There's nothing wrong with being very focused on the numbers. I would argue the opposite, because this is what ensures sustainability in the long term for the organization, for their clients, for our investors in the investment. The board is very much sort of on the ball always. They're very much aware of the issues, and Susan's team, Susan herself, but you know, Alice, Barry, her frontline, they are not only incredibly disciplined, but they are absolute experts in the property market, and they really know their geographic patch, which is key. They know where the investment opportunities might be. They know what their tenants need as well. They are fast on their feet, which has been very, very important in the past few years, because it's been a very, very competitive market, and prices, you know, were continuously going up. And they really know how to refurbish the properties. So all in all, it's been for us a very unique proposition.
Thank you very much, Susan and Jorge. We heard about an amazing project. You also touched on some of the challenges that we might be hearing about today. You know, the interest rates rising, the fact that the expectations or the interests of these impact investors are not always clear, but we'll talk more about that later. José Manuel, can you tell us a little bit more about Primero H, this also amazing project, and what is it about?
Sí, molt bon dia a tots i totes. Gràcies per la invitació als organitzadors i especialment a l'equip d'Habitat 3 que ha preparat aquesta taula. Per mi és un plaer poder compartir el projecte de Primero H en aquest magnífic festival. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invitation to share the Primero H project in this fantastic festival. I'm very happy to be here today. The first thing I consider can be useful for the audience is to know something about ORC. We are a non-profit organization that exists so that nobody lives on the streets. We have been working more than 25 years towards the eradication of homelessness. And in 2014, we found out about a Housing First project in Lisbon. After that, and after 6 months of benchmarking in Canada, the States, and different European countries, we decided to leave all other activities and put all our efforts into the developing housing solution for homelessness. In 2016, we created an alliance with another NGO, Provivienda Association, to launch and scale housing-led approaches, and specifically the Housing First methodology in Spain. Currently, we have more than 400 Housing First units, and we are working to have 600 by the end of 2024. Our main objective today is to use the evidence of our evaluations to transform the current shelter system for managing homelessness into a housing-based model that actually eradicates it. The story of Primero H began looking for a solution to achieve more and better houses for our projects and the best way to manage them. In 2020, we had more than 350 houses rented with more than 350 different landlords. The prices were rising, and the conditions for renting were stricter and stricter for tenants. We had the opportunity to meet ASOCIMI, the Association of REITs in Spain, through its president, Javier Basagoiti, and we began to talk about this problem. Javier told us about SOCIMIs, which are specialized and regulated REITs for renting in Spain. After a difficult process of mutual learning about the different worlds of real estate and homelessness NGO, we decided to launch in February 2021, Primero H, the first social rate in Spain. The idea of Primero H was very difficult to build. There wasn't a common language between NGO and real estate companies. Additionally, there was a lot of ignorance and a lot of prejudice and fears, but after 8 months of meetings, we created a very simple solution. Primero H looks for investors to buy houses that ORC rents for its housing projects. ORC assures Primero H the payment of rental without unwanted vacancies or not payment issues. Finally, Primero H offers affordable houses to ORC. As a result, ORC gets affordable houses for a fair price and can manage its houses with a single landlord that is an ally, and investors receive a double return, economic and social impact.
Thank you. Thank you, José Manuel. You mentioned Javier Basagoiti, the president of the Spanish Association of Real Estate Investment Funds. He had to be here today, but he could not make it, and instead he sent us a video, right? So we are going to put this short video, and then we continue.
ASOCIMI is an association created to promote the role of Spanish rates, including the social commitment. That's why we founded in joint venture with the third sector, Primero H SOCIMI, the first social SOCIMI in Spain, which means a vehicle for social impact investment to secure the adequate housing for groups at risk of residential exclusion.
Okay, so thank you, Javier. Maybe, José Manuel, do you want to expand a little bit on why institutional investors, no, like large real estate investors like Asocimi, why they get involved in a project like this?
Yes, I have the permission of, from Javier to talk about the point of view of Asocimi in this joint venture. From Asocimi point of view, the idea of Primero H is a better way to develop ESG criteria and a step further to corporate social responsibility. The idea is to generate social impact through its core business. Primero H can offer secure investment because its model is based on NGO tenants. NGOs pay the rent and assure the necessary support and assistance to clients. On the other hand, Primero H offers affordable rentals. The Primero H affordability concept is based on price in the low market range, and other advantages such as rent gaps at the beginning of the contract when it is more necessary to coordinate the changeover of clients, or also ensuring ready-to-live homes. One of the characteristics of Socimis in Spain is that they are listed companies. In a listed companies, it's very easy that the founders lose control as investor-based shares. In the case of Primero H, we designed a structure with two levels to avoid this. In the first level, we have Primero H social investment, the company where investors participate. On the second level, the company that owns the houses is Primero H assets. These structures allows founders to have the initiative under control and assure the social objectives. To reinforce these social objectives, the Primero H project has an ethics committee that issues an annual report about the social investment and its compliance with its mission.
Thank you, Jose Manuel. As you said, a simple structure, a simple model, but not so easy to get there, no? Because a lot of
no, it's not
different
it's
languages,
simple, but not easy.
different fears, you said, or prejudices. So thank you very much for sharing that. And now, Xavier, can you tell us about Habitat 3? What is the model of Habitat 3, and what is your experience also with private investors?
We are Habitat 3 Foundation. We are a non-profit organization, a housing association, and our mission is to make effective the right to housing for people in the most vulnerable situations. We work in Catalonia and manage more than 900 dwellings, and where more than 2,600 people live. And we were born at the end of 2014 and was promoted by the entities of, there's a big board of more than 3,000 social entities in Catalonia, and they promote our foundation. And for us, the network of alliance, like public administration and other social entities and private sector, are essential. And for example, we work with more than 20 municipalities in Catalonia and with more of 50 social entities. And some data context of the country that I think it's probably you know, but I want to say that here we have less than 2% of the housing market is a social market, social housing, and especially the public investment is very low, is 0.1% of the GDP. And in relation with private investors, right from the start, we realized that was necessary to develop alliance with them, with this private sector. Precisely at the first of the 1 year, less than some months when we start, we did a developed program with Ship2B, that is a foundation that is specialized with the social impact or invest impact. And we detected that our project have a critical aspects for success. One is the term, long-term investment. We need a long-term investment. And the second is this return. We cannot pay a lot. We can pay a very low performance. I start to asking the questions of Guillermo. And we start to work, and we start more with the model with collaboration with public administrations. We start to buy with some loans from private banks, and in 2018 we start with loans from the public bank, that is Institut Català de Finances, but in 2019 we find a friend, FFF. Yes, we are a foundation, but we have the FFF, like startup, and this friend lent to us 80,000 euros, and we buy an apartment, and we start the first experience that was very good with a friend, this investor. And later, we met another investor. In this case, was a family office investor that he came to us to collaborate. In this case, we were working for these years, and I think you have to show that you are doing a very good job. In this case, this person came to us because he has the aim to do an investment, social investment. For us, was very impressive, and in this time we did a first project that I don't know someone in the place. On Tuesday we show a documentary about Llarg Casa Bloc, and yesterday was a visit of this project, this very interesting project, and this investor lent money to us, in this case for 400,000 euros to contribute. In this case was a loan that we are paying every month. And after that, after the time, the same investor, we start to be more, we have a more deep relation and mutual trust. I think the trust is very important. And we are developing more projects. Now, sometimes we offer projects, and now we have two developed projects in Barcelona to build two buildings with 80 dwellings in the city for social and inclusive houses, and acquisition of a package of 270 dwellings that destinate for social housing. In this case was a package from a bank that now we are entering. We have a lot of relations with the banks and some funds that they have a lot of houses here in Spain about the financial crisis, and we are buying to them, and we did this project with this family office. And the social commitment, because in this case, this second level of relation, not the first, that was the loan for that Casa Bloc, in these things about building buildings or to buy this package of dwellings is an invest, is to own, to buy directly the houses, or in the case of the buildings, it's a right to have the right to use or to receive the rents for a long time, because it's an agreement. In this case, it's like a contract with the City Council of Barcelona. And we have a social commitment. I think it's good, it's a nice thing to do, that we have to have clear the agreement between the investor and the social, like us, like Habitat 3. First, assign all houses permanently to social houses. This is like a rule that say, okay, you enter here, but it's not a speculative thing. You have to enter for a long time. And in this case, and we will manage for a long time, but not all the time, but for some years. And the second is, in this case, and he said to us, okay, but I want to reinvest part of the surplus, and some part of the surplus will be destined to produce more social housing. Is develop a new social operator, private, but managing by our help, in this case, Habitat 3. And it's enough now.
Okay. Thank you, Xavier. Another important topic, collaboration between social sector, private investors, also public sector. I think a common theme today as well. Let's go to the second round of questions. We will start with Jorge, again from Social and Sustainable Capital, as you know. And let's go a bit more into the details, right? So this investment in Homes for Good, how did you structure that? And what kind of challenges did you face and how did you solve them?
Sure. So Susan mentioned earlier that we lent to Homes for Good 100% of the price of the properties that they acquired. We find that this is very helpful usually for the organization because this compares to, say, a traditional bank mortgage where the bank lends, say, 70%, might be more, might be less, but typically the voluntary sector organization needs to come up with 30% deposit from their own funds. So obviously this is a challenge for them, which is why we try to make it easier for them, and then we fund 100% of the purchase price. And then on top of this, we also fund the refurbishment that they need to do, as long as it's not a major redevelopment, it's just something they can undertake maybe in a couple of months. And I think in particular for Homes for Good, this is quite relevant because of their business model. Because I think on one hand, they're absolute property experts, so they know very well that one of the most logical ways to create value with real estate investments is to buy something that needs some level of refurbishment, as opposed to buying something straight from the market which looks beautiful and for which the price is likely to be inflated. So this is one. And number two, I think it's also very important for their business model to ensure that they are in control of the quality and the specifications of the property for their tenants. They want to give a sort of homogeneous quality service to their tenants. So refurbishment is important. They can fund it through our loan. Now, they can also fund transaction costs, so solicitors, conveyancers. They could also fund from our loan if they wanted, but they don't need to do this themselves because they are property experts. But they could pay the salary for someone coming to your organization for a year or so, who would be a property expert if they didn't have enough property capabilities and expertise, or just the fees for a property consultant that would help them purchase the portfolio. Because bear in mind, in the case of Homes for Good, I think for the first loan, you wanted to acquire more than 50 properties. I think the second one was more than 60 properties. This is a lot. And obviously, the way to do this is having sufficient time to deploy the loan and do this acquisition process, because otherwise you will not purchase the right properties for the organization, for the tenants, or it might not be at the right price. Which is why, in terms of the structure, we offer them an, I think, up to 18 months availability period at no cost. So we don't get paid any availability fee whatsoever. We think it's a reasonable amount of time to purchase the 50 or 60 properties, although I think you prefer to shorten that to 12 or 15 months, which is a bit unusual, but I think, again, speaks to your experience. And then it's a 10-year loan, and there are no, during the 10 years, they only have to pay the interest, but not amortizations of principal. Because again, we think that this makes it easier for the organization just to potentially refinance the whole loan, the principal, in 10 years' time. And then the repayment amount is also flexible when compared to a traditional bank mortgage, because instead of repaying the original value of the loan, what they have to repay is linked to what is the market value of the property portfolio at that point in time, so in 10 years' time, and it's not 100%. It's, I think it's 85% or so, which means that our interests are aligned because we both benefit if the property portfolio increases in value over 10 years' time. And just by virtue of taking a loan with us, they will retain a 15% equity stake in the property portfolio, which is nice. So yeah, I think these are the key factors. And in terms of challenges for us, well, obviously, because we have received approval from our investment committee several times for several loans with Homes for Good, is an organization that they like very much. We didn't face any major challenges, but obviously because of the several loans, which I think amount to almost £7 million in total, we had to take that into consideration, the overall exposure risk that we had to Homes for Good. And I think the good news is that we're both relatively young organizations, and I think we are sort of growing up in parallel and almost like trying to help each other. So as we also get bigger in terms of assets under management and we raise new funds, so we currently manage, I think it's £165 million of assets under management, we are able to lend more money to Homes for Good, but keeping the proportions, so to speak. And I think the last point I would mention is because Susan is so critical to Homes for Good, not only being the founder, but also being on the day-to-day of running the organization. She's also on the board, and she's very inspirational and very charismatic. And we have a 10-year relationship. It's a long relationship. In our due diligence, we just went through the usual, questions to understand how she sees the future, the possibility of, we really wanted to also meet her first line of management, very, very important, understand potential succession plans in the future, and so on. And for that due diligence, we also used a specialized consultant that also some private equity funds work with. But otherwise, it was very, very smooth.
Thank you. And now to Susan. Apart from the money that you receive from social and sustainable capital, what other contribution or what other value do they bring to the table, do you think?
So when I think about, we always get asked why we work with different investors. And I remember in 2018, when we took our first loan from Social and Sustainable Capital, we had 3 different offers on the table. So when I started in 2014, I had no offers on the table because it was a new thing. But then once you get one offer and you start, then all the people that said no in 2014 start to say yes in 2018. And we had 3 offers on the table in 2018. And Social and Sustainable Capital at the time, their offer was the smallest amount of money, and it was the most expensive in terms of the interest rate. Not by much, but it was the most expensive. And we decided to work with them without doubt. And it was because of the values, and it was clear that yes, they need to have a return on the money, but they really care about the impact, and they really want to create homes for people that need homes. So we are doing absolutely the same thing. We're 2 sides of the same coin, as we say. And that was our feeling at the beginning. And in the day-to-day working with Social and Sustainable Capital, that is reinforced every day. And the product the actual financial product that we have now taken, which is now £7 million, the risk is balanced between the organisation and the investor. And this is very unusual because actually with social impact, most funds, all of the risk is with the organisation. And we're small social organisations. And we're always going to put our people, our tenants, before profit. We're always going to make this sacrifice. So to put an organisation working with the most vulnerable people in the country, for the risk to be loaded is not the right thing. And lots of social investors do it. But the way that SASC has designed the loan and the terms of the loan, it means that there's shared risk. And that was really important. And I think also, everything in business is about relationships, and we work really well together. They're easy people to work with. We're easy people to work with. So as Jorge was saying, we've grown together, and we tell them everything that's going right and everything that's going wrong, so there are no surprises. And I think on the point of succession, very kind what you're saying, Jorge. That's really, really good to hear. It's a lovely thing that you've said. But we are really serious about what we're doing with this. So we do 2 reviews in Homes for Good. We do a review of me, where we decide whether I'm going to stay or whether I'm going to go that year. And we do a review of our investments and say, okay, so this is 10 years of investment. We're at year 4. What are we thinking? Are we thinking this is okay for the next 2 or 3 years, or do we need to review anything? So although it's long term, those 2 things, the term of the investment and my role in the organisation, we just take a moment to see whether anything's changed. And that means that even when something's long term, we're thinking about it year by year. So that's really the way that we've worked together.
Thank you. It's great to see such a good partnership here. Jose Manuel, over to you. So from the point of view of the Foundation Ogarsi, why did you decide to move to this new funding model, not to incorporate kind of large investors into your project?
Well, Ogarsi has been involved in social impact investing since 2013. The first experience we had in this new world was the idea to scale housing first through a social impact bond. We have worked very hard to try to launch a housing first social impact bond for 9 years with the regional and municipal governments in Madrid without success. In Spain, it's been so difficult to drive this funding model. I'm referring to social impact bonds. The process is so slow with governments, and innovation loses the momentum along the way. When we imagine the idea of Primero Age, we have in front of us a real and possible social impact investment project for the first time in 10 years. We truly have the opportunity to get investment to participate in the solution of homelessness through housing. Can you imagine more impact for investors? A group of people get off the streets, improve their lives, maintain their houses for more than 2 years, and some of them get to live with total autonomy after the process. We can demonstrate all this impact on the lives of our housing first clients, and with Primero Age, we can offer all this impact and an economic return to our investors. For us, it's perfect. It's perfect, but I'm sure this is is not the only way. Xavier, what aspect of your experience with private investors would you highlight?
Well, the relationship with investors that we saw before allowed to us that increase the number of social dwellings without debt for Habitat 3. That for us is very important because now, on the other hand, we are now buying a lot of flats. Now we have more than 200 more that owned by Habitat 3, and for us it's good to diversify it and to not have a lot of debt. And for Habitat 3 will be more solvent and focused on management and social projects. And a very important thing is the systemic change, incorporating investors with social values and involving them in the solution. In this festival, we are listening all the time the problem, but now, and listening, for example, yesterday in the plenary interventions of Mariana Mazzucato and Leilani Farha, that they exposed a very relevant and inspirational concept to guide relations and partnership between public and social with investors to promote social housing, to guarantee the right to housing. And this concept is we have to align, and you say, public value and common good. And for us, this is very important that this alliance for us is the light that when we find an investor that has this same view, is that it's a good relationship. But we are aware that it is a long journey. That, for example, Jose Manuel explained, a lot of years working, and in a complex and uncertain environment, because we have this experience, but we are not 100% about what will be the future, and we have to learn a lot because it's changing a lot, and we are entering in a land we are not an experts. And for this reason, which is why this is so important to create spaces of trust and aligned values. And now we are trying, and for this reason, this table, to try to learn and try to modelize the type of investment, to be able to find more investors. But we need much more investors, much projects, not only the project that we're here, we need to expand more projects to replicate, and in this case, expand in ecosystem of social housing in our country, but not that you say, Jorge, in the good way. For example, for housing associations, for cooperatives.
Thank you. Yeah, so trust, value alignment, no, these are topics that you all are talking about, right? So I think we have probably received a few questions from the audience. I think we have a couple of minutes before that, so let me ask one or two more questions, and then we go to the questions from the audience, okay? So one that has been hanging around here is this idea of the trade-off between financial returns and social impact. So do you think, or what is your experience? Do investors funding social housing projects give up some financial return, or do they, or do you think that they can also still have like financial returns as high as they would have them in other sectors? Who wants to go first? Susan, yeah.
So one of the really exciting things about social investment in houses is that it's the simplest investment you can have, I think, because the investor puts the money in and they get security over the houses. So that investment is very safe, because if they need their money back, you sell the house. And as long as we spend the money properly, as long as we don't buy houses at too high a price, the investor's never going to lose their capital. So that means this is very safe and the risk is quite low. So the return, the financial return, should be lower than, for example, if they were investing in a tech startup in medicine. I think it's a challenge, because if you really want impact, rents need to be, the income that pays for the investment is rental income. So it's the people who have been homeless, or the people who are on less than 18,000 or 16,000 euros a year, they're the people that are paying the investor return. So if we want to keep the rents low, there is only so much financial return that we can give. And we need to find investors who are prepared to accept that. And that isn't always easy. So what we have found up until now, because the market has changed now, I think I said before, everything has changed for me in the last year. But actually, when we look at the level of financial return that we can give in Glasgow, because in Glasgow house prices are low, but there's a connection between the house price and the rental income and the investor return. They're the three factors that decide whether the investment works or not. We've been able to give the level of return to our investors that they would get in Glasgow if there was no impact. So actually the impact and the finance has been the same. But when the economic climate gets more difficult, what we see is that finance comes first with most investors, and that's a shame.
Other views? Or you were mentioning, Susan, that this is, in theory, a low-risk sector for investing, no? But we also, here in Spain, we have experience of legislation changing, or tenants not being able to pay, and then it's not so easy to get a return from those assets, no? So in the experience of others, maybe those working in Spain, do you see also as a low-risk investment? Or?
Yes, but we thought the same that Susan, that this business is different than others, and the investors have to have a low expectation, because for us and our experience, social housing is a very safe investment, because there is a guaranteed demand. For example, in Catalonia, we have 250,000 families, applicants for a social rental housing. Tenants do their best to pay, because the market is horrible for them. For us, they try to pay always. And I can say here in Catalonia, the public administration are providing specific grants for the people that sometimes they cannot to pay. For this reason, they ensuring the payment. And for example, I think, Jose Manuel, you have a system that the entities, they ensure the payment, and this is a risk, zero risk. This is better than the market, and this is the gap that you give the insurance to the investor. For this reason, the interest, the profit has to be less.
Yes, there are another question with this, because the main question here is on which impact are investors demanding higher returns in economic, in social impact, or both? Because for project it could be difficult to raise the profit, but one thing we can do is increase our impact and increase the way we can demonstrate it. An interesting debate about impact investing and returns arises as we improve our evaluation and we have better indicators that can demonstrate the increase in real impact on people's lives. If we assume that impact investment have to offer two kinds of returns to investors, economic and social impact, what should happen to the economic returns if we are able to offer a greater social impact? Should both impacts be related?
Very important point. No? How do we measure that impact? And so if we say that that's important, then how we demonstrate, right? Thank you. I don't know if, Natalia, do we have already some questions from the audience? So we can move to those, and if we have more time, we continue with our questions.
So thank you to everyone who managed to scan from wherever you are that QR code. So just a reminder, you can keep posing questions on there. If we don't have time to answer them now, we will get back to you. We will also use the information you provide to send back through the filming and also to keep in touch with you if you want to. So some really great questions building on the discussions earlier. The first one was about how do you measure and visualize the impact to show the investor the return? So are you using things like theory of change or social return on investment, or another way to actually show that impact that investors are looking for?
Yes, the main advantage of Housing First methodology is that it's probably the most evaluated homelessness methodology in the world. Therefore, we have a lot of internationally contrasted indicators. The main of most use of them is housing retention. Housing retention, which shows the amount of time that our clients stayed at home off the streets. Other additional indicators we use to show the direct impact on the lives of people are the client improvements in different aspects like loneliness, recovering contact with relatives, quality of life perception, community service use, rise of incomes, or direct contact with normalized services. On the other hand, we can calculate the money saved by the welfare system by comparing the amount of money spent on different expensive emergency services that are usually used by homeless people living rough with the money spent on cheaper community services when people are houses.
That sounds like quite a powerful combination of individual but also financial. Susan, is there anything you would like to add in terms of the ways that you show impact?
Yeah, I think what you're doing is what we desperately want to do, and we want to do a social return on investment study this year in Homes for Good. But actually, we measure our impact in a very, very simple way. Very simple. We just look at who are the people that live in our homes, first of all. So we tell our investors why we need this money and who we want to provide housing for. But when we start, we don't know where the houses are going to be because we buy them off the open market, and we don't know who the people are that are going to live in the homes because they also often just apply for the house. So what's really important is just to tell who are the people, are they on low incomes, what sort of other support needs do they have, and we tell that in a very simple way so that it's very easy to see for ourselves and for our investors that first of all, The people we want to be in these homes are in these homes. That's the first thing. The other thing that we talk about is where were they before? Because actually the impact of just having a home when you need one, that's all the impact. It's so simple, isn't it? So we do look at whether they were homeless, or whether they were in poor quality housing, or whether there was a relationship breakdown. And then we just measure how long they are in their tenancies. We just provide the simple figure, because that also just tells a really simple story. If you have somebody who's had multiple tenancies, multiple homes where there's been a problem, and then they're in their home, our average at the moment is just over 3 years. It's really simple figures that just tell you what you need to know. And the other small thing that we do, which is my favourite thing actually, is we do tenant stories, and they're very small. It's less than 100 words, but we now have a habit of every time a new tenant moves into one of our properties, we just do a very simple paragraph about who they are and what that shows, and that goes to our board. I think it goes to you. But what that just shows is the diversity of people who need homes, because it's very easy when you say somebody's homeless or you say somebody's in need that we've all got an idea of who that might be. But it could be a 17-year-old girl, and it could be a 60-year-old man or a young family. So we're not sophisticated in our impact measurement, and I would love to do more. But I think if we just home in on the most basic information, it tells the story I think we need to tell.
So simple, but actually incredibly important, and actually an opportunity maybe to look at that housing first set of indicators. Xavi, is there anything you would like to add in terms of impact and showing that to investors?
Well, in our case, for example, this package of houses that investor buy was a package from a bank, and it's full of people living there. And the impact is protect these people for the future eviction. In this case, was very, very easy, because in this case we work a lot to find this package and offer a project that in itself it's an impact. And this, for example, we show these projects to for example, different banks that they want to fund the government of Catalonia, and they were impressive about that this money from a governance bank can help to buy this kind of dwellings.
Excellent, thank you. So some really great examples here. I'm just going to ask what I feel is quite a technical question. So I'm going to hand this one over. I'm warning you now. What impact, if any, are EU regulations having on ESG on investments? I'm not sure if this is something we can answer now, or whether that's definitely going to be one that we come back to. Does anyone, I don't know if anyone works within more European investments and is aware of any positive or negative. Okay, I did wonder. I was thinking, my gosh, I think you pay thousands of pounds an hour for that kind of investment. So I think we'll work together and get that one back to you. We also had a question about how sort of social investment around the world, and particularly someone from Hawaii, I don't know if they're here, talking about a real interest in whether you're aware how far social investment is available. So we've heard a really great example from Scotland and from Spain, but how well developed it is elsewhere around the world.
I mean, I can say 5 cents just. So I think the whole social investment, impact investment sector in some countries like the UK, for more than 2 decades probably it's been developing. In other countries like in Spain, probably in the last 4 or 5 years, here's where we have seen a more important growth of this sector, and it's still small if we compare to the global or to the total financial markets, of course. But we see increasing interest and also more diversity in terms of types of funds. So some of them will be very specialized in certain sectors, in certain geographies. Maybe in the beginning it was more about investing in developing countries, but we see many funds focused on investing in Europe, in North America, etc. And some of them specialized, as I said, in certain sectors, other with broader focus, and some of them maybe more focused on startups, others focus more on more mature companies. So it's a sector that is indeed developing, and probably in most of the regions in the world we find available money and interest.
Well, that's really good to know. We've got pioneers here, but we can see interest around the world. So taking ideas and models and case studies, you know, as Susan was reminding us earlier, getting the first investor is so difficult, but actually once you've been able to prove that model, others will come to the table. We've got time for one more, and so one question we had about Homes for Good for Susan was, how is the property management finance? So you talked about financing the loan, and people were interested actually all the amazing support and actually how you're able to cover those costs.
Everything is covered by rental income, so we borrow the money to buy a property, and we have to make sure that the rental yield, so the sort of the ratio of how much rent we collect in a year to the cost of the property has to be at a certain level, so that we can, and the property management costs come from the rental income, and that's the repairs and maintenance of the property, the insurance, just the management of the property, the day-to-day management, and that money comes first, that comes off first, and it usually costs about 1/3 of the rental income, and almost all of what's left goes to the interest on the investment. So what's interesting about our model, and is probably a challenge going forward, is that as the costs of the money become higher, the rental income can't become higher, and the property management costs, they become a little bit higher through inflation. So I think you can probably see there isn't a lot of profit that comes at the end. There's not a lot of money left at the end on a day-to-day basis, but everything, we are able to cover all the operating costs from the income. It's quite a simple model.
When we were doing the evaluation, so the World Habitat Awards I mentioned at the beginning, we go out and do a sort of 2-day, we do lots of work before, but we also go out and visit. And I have to say, Homes for Goods are spreadsheet people. So there are lots and lots of calculations down to individual properties. So that eye for detail that we talked about earlier to make this model work, you know, it isn't a general cut and paste. It isn't something, it is very much about understanding the numbers to actually make the model work. But when it works brilliantly, and that's why we saw those beautiful homes. I'm really conscious of time, and I'm aware that we've got more questions, so please sign up and we'll make sure that we answer all of those. I'm going to give Giamo an interesting task in terms of summing up some of the key things I think we've heard about today for us to take away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Luis. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. So we have still 8 minutes. My summary will be very short, I think. So let me ask one more question because I'm interested, and I think that so probably we have people from the public sector here in the room. If you could ask something to the public sector, what should be their role in all this kind of social housing and investing in social housing? Would you like them to regulate more? And if so, in what sense? Would you like them to invest public money? Would you like them to provide tax incentives or other type of incentives? So if someone is willing to answer briefly.
Okay. And yes, I said before that we work with we do this alliance. I think the public administrations have a very important role in these projects. Reducing the risk of the investors, for example. Like I said before, that they have some grants and can ensuring the payment. But the public administration can be one of the investors too. And they can enter in the projects. Why not? There are examples. And can play a catalytic role. For example, they can accept more risk than other investors. That gives security to the investors. So you can see the face of Jorge. And which will encourage the entry of the private capital and multiply the impact of public capital. In this case, and it's an investment. It's not to spend money. It's a invest that they can recuperate. I think it's an important role, and I think here in Spain needs a lot of work that the public administrations understand, but we have to try because I think we are in new times and we have to explain this.
Thank you.
I would add to what Xavier said. We are precisely closing an investment, which we hope to announce very soon in the UK, in which the municipality has a very, very important role. And this is also because it's a bit of a higher risk sort of model. So this is for homeless people, but using modular homes. So sort of not conventional permanent buildings, but something that has been manufactured in a manufacturing plant. It's almost like an industrial plant with a lot of design and precision, and it's net zero carbon. It has many, many benefits. It's relatively small, so maybe 25 square meters for one person. Actually, these ones are slightly larger. This could be up to 30 square meters per person. But we also know that homeless people really benefit from having their own space with a little bit of permanent support on site. But this is something very beneficial for them, and the municipality is making capital grants. Income grants are also very, very useful. So for an investor, if we can see long-term visibility of public income coming to the tenants, housing benefits, something like that, it is extremely useful, especially if this doesn't change with new governments and so on, which in Spain could be a bit of a dream in the short term. But yeah, all of these things would help tremendously.
Thank you.
The public sector could be the investor, as Javier said. They have money to invest. And I think that the one thing I would say to anybody in the public sector, start with a mindset of yes, and not a mindset of why you can't do it, because I think we've probably all had experiences of, we can see very clearly the role of the public sector, and they get caught up in all of the reasons why they can't do it, and all of the, you're not quite the right type of organisation, or that's not quite the right thing. And that stifles innovation. So I think there's just a sort of start with yes. But the other thing for me, which is clear, crystal clear, is a concept maybe of preventative investment. So somebody told me today, I don't know if the figure's right, that there's £40 million a year spent in Barcelona on hostels, and it's probably a similar amount in Glasgow. That's just crazy. That's just crazy, because that money's getting spent at the end on it's an emergency spend. Why not invest 40 million in houses for people so they don't get to hostels? And when you invest it, you get the money back at the end. So I think the public sector could have an amazing role in social investment if they just started with a yes mentality.
Okay, so thank you, everyone.
In Barcelona, we have an example that I think it explains this Habitatge Metropolis, that is a joint venture between a private and public sector, and it's an example here. It's not impossible, and they promote social housing, affordable housing.
Thank you. So we put some homework there for the public sector, which is good. So just we have a couple of minutes, so let me just say 3 words to sum up, or to just three ideas that I highlight, because there were many insights and many relevant points. One is the opportunity. So I think that impact investment, as we said, is a sector that is growing quite a lot in many countries, in many regions. So for the social housing sector, it's a good opportunity. There is money out there willing to be invested with some financial return, but with a lot of focus on the social impact, right? So if we find interesting projects that find this balance that we were saying, with the interest rate, the potential for the money that the tenants are paying and everything, if we can make the numbers work, there is money out there that wants to be invested in this sector. The second is transparency. So we also mentioned some challenges with the financial investors, right? So we need so financial investors, I would say, need to be transparent and be clear about what kind of financial return they are expecting, what kind of contribution they are making, what type of decisions they want to make, etc. So having clear expectations on both sides, that's very important. And finally, in the first slide that I showed, right, you saw the financial markets on the one side and philanthropy on the other. And as long as we can work away from those silos, right, and try to do more hybrid things or more things in the middle, more collaboration between social sector and financial sector, etc. That's challenging, no? And we have talked about some of those challenges, but it's probably the way to go, right? And social housing is a very important context and a very clear context for that. It's very capital intensive, so it's in need of money, but there are also hundreds and thousands of very interesting projects that many of the organizations that you guys work in are doing. So I think there is money, there are the projects, so it's a matter of getting in the same room, talking and finding a way. No? That's my wrap up, but I will give the floor to Luis for a final closing of the session.
My one job. She said, go up and press the button, and I fluffed it. I'm very sorry. And actually, my only other job was to say thank you. I hope that you have learned some more about social investment. I hope it's given you some ideas that you want to go away and find out some more about. I hope you've made some good contacts here and had some good discussion. Keep in touch. You know, it is, as you heard here, relationships are key to making these things work. Sharing ideas and experiences, you know, are really important in terms of tackling things like social investment. I want to say a really big thank you to our panel. I've been hearing about social investment over a number of years, and I have to say you had an absolute masterclass in terms of actually this is an amazing overview, and actually this is the reality and this is how it works in practice. So I feel very fortunate to have been part of this and to be involved. Finally, I just want to mention Natalia, the woman who gave me the job of just pressing one slide. It's really difficult to get panels like this together. This is the only session I've been involved in that ran on time, and I think we all know that Natalia was the key woman in making all of this happen. So thank you, all of you.